I'm Greg Beitchman, and we're speaking today with Omair Ahmed, who is the founder of Neurometry, who's joining us here in North London. Omair, tell us about the Neurometry project and what you're trying to achieve.
Thanks, Greg. Good to see you. Yeah, we started Neurometry about 2 years ago now, time flies, 2021. It was a partnership between myself and Dr. Prabita Orweiler in Switzerland. And we started the company to target cognition impairment, which is essentially manifests itself in different areas, but affects functional life. So Neurometry's aim is to be able to identify those risk factors and also rehabilitate those while working within senior living and areas. So, yeah.
So, Omair, tell us why Neurometry is using video games to do this kind of understanding of degenerative disease.
So video games allow us to capture two things: scale through handheld devices, and games by nature are an interactive process. So it allows us to overcome several of the biases that tend to exhibit themselves in current protocol, where biases such as language, cross-cultural understandings, and and we're able to do that in fun ways, which is the key thing over here. The biases that we overcome, for example, in my grandmother's case, a bilingual person forgetting how to speak the secondary language they were trained on as one of the indications of MCI, for example, and made it more difficult for the analysis by the doctor in the primary clinic area whether she needed specialized services. So all this can be overcome through gaming. So
I understand that games have been used before in to address other kinds of mental health issues in other sorts of populations, for example, children. Tell us a little bit about how this has been used before, for example, with children.
Yeah, so everyone's heard of two effects, which is screen time effect, as well as there's significant research on I guess what traditional puzzle games like crosswords or things like that. What effect does that have on keeping yourself alert, sharp, just in general? And that has nothing to do with any particular age or whatever. So there were studies done on that. Secondly, there were studies done on video gaming and what effect did that have on developmental pathways. So domains such as your ability to focus, attention, or do you need that reward system on the frame changes that are happening? So this is exactly the opposite, which is, there you're exploring certain potential negative trends, whereas here you're looking at, okay, well, once the brain starts to decline, or let's say past 45, when your pathway is towards a downhill in a way. The brain is an incredible thing which can adapt, and that's where I think gaming can really help in the same way. So this is being analyzed by several of our clinical partners at the moment.
Has it been used before, for example, to treat something or to address something, or is this the first time?
Yeah, think about it. So in sports, you use simulators for training. You can potentially train your responses with different light games, right? If you're boxing, things like that. Gaming is also used in drone pilot training, for example, things along those lines. So yeah, they're incredibly effective, but the gaming that was designed then is required for you to go in somewhere, have some hardware, things like that. What we wanted to do was avoid the need of that, because that would create an impediment for scale. So hence why we did a usability study. We identified people over, let's say, 50, 55, really preferring the game genre of puzzles. It's something they're used to, familiar with. You're taking it from a board onto a tablet, and and it's enjoyable, repetitive. You can do it much like chess. Yeah.
Why now? Why now for neurometry? What are the sort of trends that we see environmentally in the human population that are making it much more relevant and important that this happens?
Some of the, I guess, recent occurrences, which is empowering a transformation across, which is digital tools in general. So people's ability to resort to Zoom, FaceTime, things like along those lines, that have, and the acceptance of those tools within clinical parameters. So individuals couldn't see their doctors. Now the doctors have learned how to sort of triage the risk and be able to use web conference sort of things. So that's, broadly speaking, very important on digital tools for all variety of things. Second is, I guess we are moving towards a cycle where we've got an aging demographic within several countries, and medicine's advanced, so therefore average life expectations increasing. There's certain life factors like how we think about retirement. If you retire at the age of, let's say, 60, and average life expectancy is 86 for a woman, for example. So that's 26 years post-retirement. What are you doing? So the idea being, to enrich that part of your life, so to really stay healthy. And unfortunately, the neurology element or the nervous system tends to be invisible unless you see physical symptoms of it, right? So you might say, hey, I'm getting slow because I'm getting old, right? But there's incredibly a lot of people that are still sharp at later ages, and there are several environmental contexts to it. So those are all the changes that are assisting a lot of tools like neurometry to be offered to the public and have a chance for success.
So tell us a little about the gaps in the current assessment. Obviously people, doctors, professionals are trying to understand today who has got one of these conditions.
Sure.
How do they do it versus what you're going to do? What are the gaps?
Well, big gaps at the moment are really that we lack the tools that are either sensitive enough to capture these subtle changes or are widespread enough to address lack of reporting, for example, which occurs either, let's say, in a household environment where you might notice your parent or grandparent declining in function, which is uncharacteristic of them, for example. But in a senior living facility of some sorts, which could be a retirement or care home, often workers they don't have time. They need to record these evidences. How they record them, they're very anecdotal. And therefore, the assessment process is far too long and often happens when the disease is already in the mild to moderate stage. Let's say, for example, with dementia. So the purpose for us is really to rapidly screen cognition performance, let's say, cognitive performance. And with that, over a period of time for that particular person's baseline, we're able to see how they're doing. Of course, there's learning effects, etc., but that's our target. And to be able to address different areas and evaluate them. It's key to point out that cognition impairment can be an outcome of different things like brain injury, could be a stroke, could be multiple strokes, or if you're having existing treatment for something else that's terminal or let's say cancer, what effect is that having on your cognition? Isn't quite evaluated in a quantified manner unless you're referred to a memory clinic.
Okay.
So we're really taking the tools of memory clinic to your house.
So, I'm wearing a Apple Watch, which gives me heart rate, temperature, a few other things, and I've got a blood pressure meter, which gives me blood pressure. Is this something that's going to will be used outside the clinic as well? Would a consumer be able to run these tests once a month at home themselves and maybe submit the data somewhere? Or is this kind of something you use with a clinician? Yeah,
so interesting you say that. We integrate the application with a portal, so you're able to go in there and actually see the analysis. Eventually, we're going to be able to integrate that wearable, your Apple Watch, or it could be any other, into the app. So for example, let's say, for argument's sakes, you're having sleep apnea or some sleep issues. What effect is that having overall on your state of mind through the day? And these are important factors to know. We don't see our application as a test per se. We want to see it as something, a program that you follow, right? At least for 3 to 6 months, if not longer, if you continue. But it gives you a benchmark of where you are, and it requires maybe up to 20 minutes maximum.
Okay.
So effectively, let's say you're evaluating yourself, you find that, and our main aim is to be able to understand where you are, let's say, for a 70-year-old who lived in London, right? Or someone who's lived in countryside or something. Based on your exposure, where should you be, right? In terms of performance and whatever. How that, all these markers, how that helps you is, you might be able to, let's say, pick up a musical instrument.
Yeah.
That has the ability, to rewire your brain completely, right? Musical instrument, new language, things like that. So these are all activities you can do, and different people may find their own activities for engaging their brain.
And another question, which I think you sort of answered, is, someone's going to be able to use this on a regular basis, maybe even benchmark or track their kind of progress. There's been a huge transformation in digital health and consumers' willingness to use it, I think particularly post-pandemic and post-COVID. So this seems to fit nicely into that model where a consumer can take more ownership, or a patient can take more ownership of their monitoring of their kind of condition.
Yeah, they're very in tune to, there's something to be said about intuition, right? So you don't want to overpower them with analysis or numbers, which is why something that's fun and engaging, just like a puzzle, right, crossword, you can do daily just because it's fun, right? Versus, for example, I like to play Halo, but I'll play Halo every now and again, not all the time. So the application's designed to be stimulative. Currently, we target 2 of the domains, and our next thing is to continue expanding that within, let's say, memory or motor functions even. So, when you track something with your eye and you're responding with your hands, right? So combine those. So continue to build new and new applications that'll shed some light and empower the individual ultimately, so they can hack their own lifestyle as they want, right? Because the best person to understand that is either you or your next of kin, really.
So, Omair, you've told us a little bit about how this product will be useful for consumers, but actually it's going to fit into this infrastructure that exists around clinics and healthcare systems.
Yeah.
Where does it fit there? How's it going to be operated and used by professionals?
So, key point, the application is available now to download within the health performance side of things. It's called Neurometry Care. You go on our website, go on the portal. Let's say it's a care home, you can register. So we've decided at Neurometry to look at care as an innovative factor. So I think one of your earlier questions about what are some of the systematic changes that are making this introduction conducive is actually hybrid working. So you have more increased capability to take care of someone either elderly or someone that's there, next of kin. So we've opened this up to households as well, right? Of course, at a household and average level, you'll be able to look at your participation metrics, you'll be able to see some suggestive research, but you can refer or take the analysis to clinicians. And for clinicians, we're developing a separate app called Neurometry Plus, which will be available next year. And each one of these applications we take through a clinical validation process. So we need to see if it works, how, etc. So for care home managers, the key thing is they'll be able to see for their residents, what their performance is overall, track it, and if there's a risk profile, have that as a report card that a person can take with them to a doctor, and everything stays the way it is as today. But it's just assistive to the doctor, and the doctor will be providing them with description of what it is.
Yep.
So, for example, solving time, execution time, etc. Yeah, that's the key thing, I think. And we're going to continue to, for example, we can look at micro hand tremors and such. So that sort of information, which will be only available to clinicians, of course, because it can guide them. And that area is regulated, whereas we've got the non-clinical app at the moment, which is available anyways. So those are the two sort of product lines.
Sort of Neurometry Plus and a Neurometry product. And Neurometry Plus is really for professionals, clinicians, care home operators. Neurometry is more something that the general population can download, use, and sort of assess themselves.
Okay. Exactly. And the way we've priced it, we're doing a monthly recurring, just like any other application. It's priced to be announced, but it wouldn't be any more than, I think, just a tad bit above a Netflix price that a person would pay, for example. For clinicians, of course, it'll be a different process because the level of analysis we're providing is a lot more.
Yep.
The data we capture is at a different latency, and again, your integrative capabilities. So your heart rate, for example, whatever information we can capture. So wearables are continuously being improved in terms of sensors, and that's the key thing. So what's the integrity of the data that's coming out, and we look at that.
Got it. So where do you see the company 5 years from now? What would success look like?
That's a good question. I think, so we've just recently partnered up with UCL. We're already working with University of Bern. We continue to work with new clinicians who are driving sort of the innovative thinking around different areas, so spatial navigation. So where we see the company in 5 years is really, I'd like to be an outpatient service for anyone that comes in reportedly with a risk towards either cognition or motor impairment. In fact, one can drive the other. And and it's, as long as the cost per person is low, there's no reason why we can't scale. And this is ultimately down to the individual. And, if a person's far away from a point of dispatch, we should be there. So, you're never too far from a memory clinic service. That's, to me, what will be the success. And if we can hammer out, let's say, an intervention for dementia about 15 years earlier than what it is today, it gives chance to the strategic therapeutics that are being developed at the moment, which you've heard of this year, 2 drugs being released, to actually give people a chance to have a good functional life. So if we screen it, the diagnostic process occurs. We've got a rehabilitative management process, which helps clinicians continue to either modulate the treatment they give them some sort of guidance, you know what I mean, more than what it is today. So to me, that would be the ultimate success, to deliver that improvement in neurological health globally. All right, Greg.
So, Omair, show us how a consumer, a user is going to engage with Neurometry.
Right. So you're supposed to go on the website. Pretty easy. We've got a web application. You go to our portal, sign up. So if you're a business or if you're a household, you create an account. I already have one. I'm going to show you a quick admin test, for example. So this is what the platform looks like. for a care home. You're going to be able to see your users, their average age, for example, their activity profile. You'll be able to add users directly from here. Following that, you want to see how you're doing as per each game. So you manage all of this here. And yeah, you can see a little bit about our science. It'll explain to you exactly what it is and the publications, for example, that drive it. You're then asked to go onto the App Store and download the Neurometry Care app. You can log in. So I'm logging in with my with mine. It's Prabith as myself, etc. If I go in, I've got two applications here. You choose which one. Now, important thing to note here is the users we added are the users that'll be here. So the profiles, it'll look exactly like Netflix. It's pretty easy. You go in, you can press how to play. It'll tell you exactly what we're looking for in this game. And then you'll be guided through a baseline test that you'll have to do. And then that modulates exactly where you are and the difficulty parameters. The second game is similar. It has its own particular reasons and particular targets. So our hope is at the end of the day, every person spends about, I would say, 7.5 to 10 minutes per game because they each target a different area. Or you can alternate.
Omair, you've built a really exciting platform. It's just fantastic to learn so much more about it, and I want to wish you the best of luck in your next steps. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And to anyone listening to this video, I invite you to test out the application. And if you have any questions, feel free to write to us, or if you're a researcher who's looking at a particular area that wants to participate, I have a pretty open mind about working collaboratively. So again, thank you very much, Greg, for having me.
No worries.